The Indian government has strongly defended itself for its decision of buying discounted Russian oil. India recently accepted Russia's offer to purchase 3 million barrels of crude at a discounted price.
There's been a report yesterday about the possibility that India could take up the Russian offer of discounted crude oil. What would be your message to India or any other country tempted by such an offer?
Well, our message to any country continues to be that obviously abide by the sanctions, but that we have put in place and recommended. I don't believe this would be violating that, but also think about where you want to stand when the history books are written in this moment in time. And support for the Russian leadership is support for an invasion that obviously is having a devastating impact.
According to an anonymous Indian government official, India has recently purchased 3 million barrels of Russian oil, and they're planning on buying more. What does this mean for Biden and his allies as they seek to hurt the Russian economy? I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ, but first, who is Narendra Modi?
इस समय जो युद्ध चल रहा है
Modi is the current Prime Minister of India. He's been referred to as the Trump of India, and when Trump did visit India during his presidency, he was met with a very, very warm welcome. Modi is a member of India's Hindu Nationalist Party, and as you may have heard, they are quite anti-Muslim. Modi has managed to consolidate his power during his time in office, and his anti-Muslim rhetoric has been institutionalized within his policies and embodied by his more nationalistic and zealous followers. In other words, it's not a good time to be a Muslim in India. Hate crimes against Muslims in India have nearly doubled since Modi's been in office. Additionally, he's a fan of grandstanding and rallies and conspiracy theories, and he is decidedly not a fan of independent media or human rights. Boasting to be the head of the largest democracy in the world, India's democracy has actually been downgraded by several international agencies since Modi's election. A group in the US called it a partially free democracy, and in Sweden they called it an electoral autocracy. The Economist called it flawed.
And tonight's show would be incomplete without discussing the biggest headline from India. I'm talking about the results of India's state elections. 5 states went to the polls, including India's smallest state, Goa, and India's most populous state, Uttar Pradesh. Both voted the same party to power. Trends were shattered, records were broken, and big gains were made by young faces. Today's results show us the road that the world's biggest democracy has chosen to walk on.
Modi's legacy is so divisive that it's even been felt here in the US. He actually came to Houston a couple years ago, and it was this big rally that they called Howdy Modi. I'm not making that up, it was really weird. Houston actually has a pretty sizable South Asian population, especially over on the west side. There was a district over there that was particularly flippable, and there was a Dem who was running. That guy, he ended up going to the Howdy Modi rally, and he essentially alienated half of the people who would have voted for him. He ended up not winning the race. Could have been for that reason, could have been for a number of reasons, but either way, his attendance at the rally did not help him. It was a pretty big deal. It even got some national attention. So now that you know what kind of guy Modi is, you can get a sense for why he's still doing business with a guy like Putin. But apart from the implied kinship between the two, India's been in a bit of a financial and economic bind since the pandemic. India could use a discounted rate on oil, and Russia could use the sale. However, this isn't the first time that Modi's been cozy with Putin. India recently purchased advanced Russian air defense systems, a move that led the US to consider imposing sanctions against India. Beyond that, the geopolitical dynamic of India, Russia, and China is a formidable one, especially as the US and NATO attempt to isolate Russia from the international community, especially economically. Currently, India imports about 85% of its oil, and that demand is expected to increase by 8% this year. Russia, reeling from Western-imposed economic sanctions, is offering oil at discounted rates of up to 20% off. Everything must go. For its part, though, India has remained largely silent on the invasion of Ukraine. When the UN voted to condemn Putin's invasion of Ukraine, India abstained. Some consider this India's way of returning the favor to Russia. As you may know, India and Pakistan, two nuclear neighbors, have been in a decades-long struggle with one another over the Kashmir region. There have been a few instances where the UN has considered getting involved, intervening within the conflict, but Russia has said, no, this is between those two and it should stay between those two. India and Russia have essentially been allies in some form or other since India obtained its independence from Britain in 1947, so it's relatively understandable that they would be slow to condemn Russia or even Putin himself. Still, it may become increasingly difficult for India to maintain its neutral-ish position as Putin's aggression continues.